Hi, welcome to Mixinglikeapro. This is Dami. So in today's video, I'm going to show you what my mix bus chain looks like. Currently, I have mainly analog mix bus chain. All of my mixes come into my summing mixer, into the EQ, compressor, the converter, and back into Pro Tools. What you're gonna get from here is why I use the gears that I have, why I have them, what I use them for, how I use them, what I like about them, perhaps what I don't like about them. Just wanted to do this video to share with you, and I can't wait to also hear from you guys too how you use what your mix bus processing is like, even if it's not in the analog domain. When I started investing in the analog, the goal was to replicate how I was doing stuff in the box, and you're gonna see some of that example right here. All right, so just stay tuned and we're gonna jump right in. All right, so here is the quick setup. Let me go over my routing quickly. Everything is coming from my audio interface, which is this guy right here, the Orion 32 Plus by Antelope Audio, and 16 channels is basically coming out of there into this summing mixer right here. That is the first gear on my mix bus, which is the Rupert Neve designed Orbit 5057. This is where I route things. I have all drums, I have all bass, I have background vocals. All these are 2 channels each, right? I have lead vocals, I have all music, all effects, and percussion as well. So that's about it. So stereo channel, and I'm bringing them in here. For the bass channel right here, I think it's routed to my 5 and 6, so I would always put that in mono by clicking that down because I want it to be center. I used to do that too for the vocals too, put them in mono. But in cases where I have maybe 2 lead vocals and I'm trying to pan some of it a little bit to the left or a little bit off to the right, whichever way, I just leave it unpanned, just leave it stereo, but it's still coming out in the middle. But most times I'll just click that to make it mono, and it sounds, I won't say it sounds better, but that's kind of the way I've been using it. So coming from my audio interface into the Orbit, from the Orbit is going into the Elysia. This is the xfilter stereo equalizer, the mastering edition. I think they have 2, so this is the mastering edition. And then from here, it's routed into this Vari Tube compressor right here. From this, it's going into another EQ, which is the Symph EQ by Heritage Audio, a very beautiful EQ. It's a Baxandal style EQ. And then it's going to my Rupert Neve Portico 2. This is the MBP, the Master Bus Processor. And then last on the chain is the MBC, which is my converter, and we're gonna just go over that. I don't have a patch base, so all of these things are just direct in and out. So there's no point where I'm going to say I don't want to run it through this gear. Unfortunately not. And that's kind of the way I choose to set this up. I just want something I set and forget. So the only thing I change is the knobs. Even at this stage, I'm trying to find a way to have some magical setting on my mix bus that can work for all songs, but I'm still trying to get there, and I hope I can get there because that will save a lot of time when it comes to recall. But you always want to do what is best for the music. So let's start from here. The Orbit, I think, in my opinion, this is the brain of my mixes, or the brain of my mix bus processing. Like I said, I was trying to emulate what I used to do or what I still do if I'm mixing in the box only. So if I'm mixing in box only, I'm using the Slate virtual mix bus. Yeah, I'm using that, and then following that is gonna, most times it's just an EQ. I might actually have 2 EQ, one EQ doing some corrective stuff. I'll have another EQ to boost things, and then I'll compress, and then once I'm done compressing, I'll find like a saturation stuff to use. Maybe it's tape or just any saturation stuff. That's all I usually would have on my mix bus, and that's kind of the very similar thing I've replicated here. So the first thing here is the Neve design Orbit summing mixer. This right here adds that transformer sound to your music. I mean, I think you can hear the change instantly if you run stuff through it. I used to be very gentle with it, but then I go heavy on this guy, so I'm actually, most times when I'm mixing, I like to see the red light come on. And I found out that even when I do that, sometimes I do not use any compression on the mix bus at all. So all my compressors here are just there for me to run sound through them. So I'll push into it, and then I use the trim to dial back some volume. So that's what I use the Orbit for. If you're in the market trying to get a summing mixer, I would definitely advise this. But before you go get a summing mixer, you have to make sure that your interface has enough output to output 16 channel. And if you don't need 16 channel, you only need 8. Just do what you like to do. And then I'm sure people use this differently. Some people can route kick in here, snare in here, mono channel, and that's fine. I've tried to do that too, but because of the way I mix, that hasn't worked yet, so I cannot do it the way I know how to for now. So the only thing that I truly just wish this has is a way to insert things on any of this channel. I think that would have been golden for me. At least maybe if they could have just done it for like 1 channel or just 2, that would have been good. So that way, if I run all of my drums through 7 and 8, I can literally maybe add a compressor, maybe in a parallel mode or whatever, to that drum bus, and then I bring it back in. I really do wish that I can do that things. But other than that, it has a beautiful sound. You can also play around with your silk mode. The blue basically gives you more sweet bottom end, honest sweet bottom end, and the red silk gives you that upper harmonics and sounds really nice. You can't really go wrong with this. And on my mix bus, when I'm using this, and what you're gonna get to see is that I have 3 of these that I can use at any given point in time, because I have other Neves here. This one has the silk, this also has the silk. And do I use them? Honestly, yeah, I do. Most times I just use them. Very rarely would I turn them off, because I'm mixing into them already. So if I just turn them on at the beginning of the mix, I leave it. So and I think they contribute to some of my songs. When I hear the low end, those things is not what EQs are doing. Because even when I listen, sometimes I'm like, yeah, that can be an equalizer. And maybe if it's an equalizer, the only thing I can point to is this guy right here, the Heritage Audio. But I don't want to digress. So the silk is right there for you to use to add some nice color to the sound. Now moving on to the next one is the Elysia xfilter, the mastering edition. The reason why I got this was simple. Because of my workflow and the way I mix, I realized that when I mix, I'm always, even in the box, right, I'm always going back to my mix bus to carve out some low mid. Around 200 is just kind of the standard. And I've tried, I'm like, you know what, let me just mix without doing that, without cutting out some stuff on the master bus. But I realized that even when I'm done with the mix, I end up going back to the master bus to carve out some space, remove some of the low mid instruments, so some of the low mid frequency in there. So I'm like, I need to be able to do that in the analog world if I'm running my mix bus through this. So that was what propelled me to start looking at equalizers in the market. This might be a company that a lot of people are sleeping on. Those guys making these gears are very, very knowledgeable. The things they can do with it, maybe because they wrote the code, because they did it, I don't know. It's like they're better mix engineers than even people using the gears. But anyways, now in my opinion, this is a very clean EQ that can do amazing things. The low end on there is clean and cuts really nice. So it saves me all the time. And I honestly, on this guy, most times I have like almost a to-go settings that I use. I know I boost, like maybe on the 40 hertz here, I select 40 hertz, I boost maybe about 2 dB. Here 200, 250, depends on the song. I would move it around a little bit. This is the low mid, and then the high mid, and then high shelf. High shelf is like around 10K. One of the biggest advantages here is also this thing called the passive and then passive massage. This shaves out some of the excessive top end on your song. When I'm mixing, when I kind of maybe just leave that there, because I always want to, make sure my top end is kind of clean, not too much going in there. So I love the passive. It helps in mixing. It also helps in mastering as well. It helps a lot in mastering as well to help you shave it out, and it's not bad. So Elysia, that is a 10/10 in my book for clean, nice stereo equalizer. Now going to the Tegeler Vari Tube compressor. Now I got this also. Obviously I was looking for a nice compressor, because I already have the particle tube. I was looking for maybe a tube, nice compressor. And there's some things, some tools that makes your job just easy for you without doing much, and that's what I'm looking for. And I'm grateful to God that I'm able to that I have all of this, because sometimes I would tell myself, okay, I'm just gonna do in the box mixes, but right out of the gate I'm hearing the mix, I'm like, there's something missing, even when I haven't started mixing. And the moment I just route it through my analog chain, I have just peace right away. Doesn't mean that the mix is good, but there's this sonic quality that you hear that just gives you peace of mind that, okay, now I can mix well. You can still mix a bad mix with all of these things, so it's not the gear. Back to Tegeler, how this thing glues sound together. And that's the thing, even with when you're mixing or mastering, maybe 1 dB is probably even not up to 1 dB is all you need, but there's some weight it adds to the song, complete song, when it was engaged. And that was actually what caught my attention the first time I heard the review of this. And I'm like, you know what, I didn't even waste time. That was one gear I didn't waste time. I was like, I'm going to get this. I'm going to get this. I love what it was doing in the reviews that I watched. Not a lot of them, maybe 1 or 2, and I kind of made the decision then to get that. So I think this is a very good tube compressor, and I'm glad that they have the color. So even when I don't use the compressor, it has the color mode right there to just run your sound through it. The previous generation of this doesn't have it. Maybe it's doing it under the hood, who knows, even when it's bypassed. But this has the color mode and I like it. I think the only challenge I have here, I'm used to it now, is the way these buttons are kind of laid out. Is it asymmetric? Is that what you call this? That can kind of mess up with your brain sometimes. So I did spend so much time trying to learn the sound well, and I'm still gonna keep doing that, because that's one thing I noticed about analog gear. When you get it, you might not even know how to use it. Even though everything seems like, oh, you know what this is doing, it takes some time. But going to the next one, which is the Symph EQ by Heritage Audio. This is a fantastic EQ. The top end, the low end, there's just something special about it. Most times I'm mixing and then I'm boosting, like, who knows, 3 dB on the top end. So I use, and it doesn't sound harsh at all. And I use it mid-side. I think that's another crucial thing. This one is a stereo mode, no mid-side function. But when it comes here to the Symph EQ, I use it mid-side. And then so that way, this side controls my mid, my kick, So I'm boosting like 100 here. I'm boosting like 2 dB or 1.5, it depends. But what I love about it the most is, can you imagine that they gave you this here? High pass filter and low pass filter as well. I mean, that's hard. You don't see that on a lot of EQ, hardware EQs, mastering. So I use this a lot in mixing and mastering. Gives me peace of mind that, okay, my low end is fine, right? Nothing below 22. Of course, some things below is still going, but I have that peace of mind that, okay, I'm good. I still use the low pass on my side instruments, so maybe background vocals that are kind of super shiny, super top endish. I use this to control those excessive frequency there, just to clean up and make my sound more focused and tight. Now the next one is the Particle MBP. It's easy to just use it, that's all I can say. Though you need to play around with it, and most times I'm compressing maybe 2 dB. That's if I'm compressing at all, like I mentioned. Sometimes I do not compress on my mix bus. I only do it if I think it's needed. It's kind of set to 1.5. I'd never changed the ratio on there, so the ratio right there is 1.5. My threshold, when it's set like this, is like it's not doing anything, so I have to move it here, and then I start compressing. Most times I can use the blue here. I use the red silk, you know, stereo at 12 o'clock. This one maybe 75, or it depends. Sometimes it's at 25 right there. It just depends. So that's that. The compressor sounds very good to me. Now the other part of the Neve, what I like about it is the width. And then the last on the list is the MBC, which is the converter. Now this converter allows me to do several things, which I think is crucial. Without it, it might be actually difficult to control my gain going back into the DAW. So it has the calibration mode right there. So this helps me know how much gain I'm pushing back into my DAW, so I can control it if I want things to be loud or I want things to be at a level that I think it's okay for mixing. That's really it. Now it has a limiter on there as well. I've only used that limiter maybe twice, and I was glad that I used it on the mix I worked on not too long ago, because the snare in there was super loud. I think the snare in the song needed to be loud, but then I wasn't even gonna use it, but I just told myself, no, let me see if I can control this snare drum. So I engaged the limiter, I adjusted the release time, and then voila, man. I didn't want to compress much. I was limiting maybe about, I would say 2 to 3 dB, but it was only catching the snare. So I mean, and the snare was still loud, but was much more, it was smooth. That was what this limiter did, right? So that made me fall in love with it. I might be using it more. But then the thing I love most about it is, of course, it has the transformer, and then it has the silk mode as well, the red and blue, and then the transformer. So 2 different flavors you can add on the mix bus. That's what I really, most times I use that limiter for flow. And then from my MBC, it goes back into my audio interface and then into my Pro Tools basically. So I hope this was helpful in a way. So if you are like me and you're trying to invest in some analog gears and you're considering any of these pieces right here, you can leave some questions in the comment section below. I'll probably do some more audio examples when it comes to how I use this gear in a real setting. We'll pull up a song, and then I will go through mixing the song just on the mix bus live, to hear the decisions that I make. Thanks again for joining. Hope you find this really helpful. Please don't forget to leave a comment, but more importantly, subscribe if you haven't done that already, and also like the video, and just leave your thoughts in the comment section as well too, and keep an eye out for other videos in the future. Thank you and bye.